Dedicated to protecting civil liberties and underrepresented communities, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has constructed a life of public service built around advocacy and justice. Her journey has taken her from roles as a public defender and civil rights attorney to a state representative, and now to the United States Congress. Representing Texas's 30th congressional district, she serves a vibrant community located at the core of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, spanning both Dallas and Tarrant counties. Her commitment to justice and equality echoes in her active participation in the House Oversight, I know y'all be seeing her drag these folks, and House Agriculture committees. Welcome to the Reecie Colbert Show, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Hey, girl, hey.
What an intro. I'm excited to have a chance to kind of just sit down and chat with you for a second.
Me too. I first met you at the Emily's List gala, but it was a very brief introduction. And then I saw you again at Essence Fest at one of the many events that they had. And I was so glad when you agreed to come on the show, because I am such a huge fan of not only your work, because you bring the receipts and you have the credentials, but also your style, your leadership style, the way that you bring this authentic Black girl magic to the Congress. So I want to talk about some bills that you are championing and stuff, but let's start here about how you are approaching being a congresswoman. You're a younger Black woman who just has this really dynamic style. And I love that. For me, I see that you don't shrink, you don't back down, you call a spade a spade. And I think that kind of representation is really important. So how did you decide that that's what you were going to bring to Congress?
Yeah, so for me, it's a couple of things. Number one, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically I operate like I'm fearless, because I am fearless, because I had a life outside of being an elected. And I think when people basically make their entire life their position, it is hard for them to function like they should be able to function, because they're so fearful of losing their identity. Like,
Right.
being a congressperson is not my identity. It's just kind of my job. It's what I do. And so with that, I function like I understand that this isn't my seat. The seat belongs to the people. And I don't know if they're going to like it or not, but this is how I think representation should look. And if for some reason the people don't like it, because I believe in democracy, because I believe in honoring the vote, then they have an opportunity to vote me out, because that's what it's supposed to be. So I guess call it, a throwback who really believes in democracy and functions with this kind of fearless attitude of, I think I'm doing right by my district.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. You remind me of that, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm attitude, fearless, unbossed, and just out
Yeah.
there taking it to the people, but also representing for the people, because I know that you've gone viral for several different situations in the House Oversight hearings, because you got some, you ain't gonna say it, I'm gonna say these are my words, some crazies on the other side. But, beyond that, you're actually representing your constituents and bringing resources to the community, and actually championing bills that are, not really talked about as much. I really want to hone in on what you're doing, in particular around senior nutrition and senior hunger. That is such it's been a policy choice, let's just put it this way, in our country, to have people go hungry, to have poverty be a reason why people, or food deserts be a reason why people do not have the proper access to nutritional food or food at all. And so when I was preparing for this interview, I was really happy to see all of the work that you're doing around nutrition. Let's first talk about your newly proposed bipartisan, I would add, Senior Nutrition Task Force Act. This is geared towards combating hunger and malnutrition in seniors and disabled adults. This is Disability Pride Month, so that's actually really good that that you have a bill that's talking about that community specifically. You've emphasized that, considering the wealth of this country, it's not acceptable for anyone, particularly vulnerable groups, to suffer from hunger. So how will this act simplify access to nutrition benefits for seniors and the disabled?
Yeah, so the Senior Nutrition Task Force Act, it'll give us the tools that we need to investigate the causes of the crisis and craft bipartisan solutions to get healthy food to low mobility Americans wherever they live. And so, sometimes it's a matter of we don't have the data in front of us, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to operate just off of your gut. You really do need some facts. And especially if it's going to be a bipartisan piece of legislation, it is easier when you can say the cause for this hunger is, and
Right.
this is how we can fix it. So I'm really excited for it. And, as someone who comes from the younger generation, but understands that I only exist here in this time because of the sacrifices that have been made by the older generations, I think that it really is deplorable that we are not taking care of these heroes, as far as I'm concerned, right?
Right.
Um, these Maywakers for people like me. It's, I don't want certain groups to ever be forgotten. And it's always going to be the elderly, it's always going to be the veterans, and it's always going to be the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are probably our most vulnerable populations that a lot of times just kind of get ignored.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. So that's what
Right.
the goal of this is.
Yeah. I think you're so right about data and, it's also evidence, right? Because I remember there was a Republican, he was a state lawmaker and I can't remember the state, I can't remember the gentleman at this time, but he flat out said that like hunger was not an issue for children. I mean, he said that. And that's just unequivocally untrue. But you do have
Yeah.
people that are living in their bubble that
Yep.
don't see that as a problem because maybe it's not a problem with people they know, or it's not a problem that they're seeing because these folks tend to be invisible in terms of the coverage that these issues get. And so I really agree with you in terms of, getting the evidence, getting the data is the first really good step into starting to combat these things. Let's talk about your SHOP Act. This is another bipartisan act, but it also has picked up support in the Senate from Senators Corn and Luan. This could revolutionize how SNAP recipients buy fresh and frozen produce. Can you talk a little bit about this bill? What was the inspiration behind it, and how this has potential to impact those food deserts that our community, in particular the Black community, is disproportionately likely to live in?
Yeah. So, I mean, and this happens for sure in my district. 20% of my district live at or below poverty.
Mm,
And we have food deserts everywhere. And honestly, this is also an issue that exists in rural America is
yeah.
the food deserts, which is why I believe that this is a pretty good bipartisan bill. Because honestly, a lot of the issues that we see in rural America can actually be mirrored in inner city, lower socioeconomic
Mm,
America as well. But nevertheless, what most people probably don't realize is that right now, when you're using your benefits, these benefits are not being allowed on the frozen produce. So if I can walk into a grocery store and I can get fresh broccoli, then fine. But if we modify the GusNIP program, then this would allow for people to actually use those benefits to get the frozen veggies and fruit as well. It
mm,
seems like a very common sense thing, and nobody probably would really think about it. But
yeah.
not only is this just kind of good policy because it's common sense, but it's also good from the standpoint of when you are in those food deserts, you are less likely to run up on a store that actually does have like this fresh, amazing broccoli and lettuce and things like
Hmm.
that. But they may have a frozen food section. And as we are trying to promote kind of health and food being health for you, it would allow for us to hopefully get more people to make decisions to say, you know what, I can get frozen foods. So let me get that and hopefully end up with better health outcomes. Because a lot of times when we're looking at a food desert, we're also talking about a place that has a health desert as well. And so this is about really trying to better the health outcomes overall for people in that are in need of SNAP benefits in the first
Right.
place,
Right.
which tend to be areas that are suffering socioeconomically.
Hmm. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, like I got a Dollar General down the street in one direction from my house. I got a Family Dollar the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't got no fresh fruit up in there. They do have the broccoli in the frozen section, but they don't have no broccoli that you can go and pick through and look at it and inspect it and all that good stuff. So this isn't something I know sometimes when we talk about programs like the SNAP program, when we talk about particular communities like or particular demographics like seniors or disabled, there are people that are like, well, what's in it for me? Why would that got to do with me? What am I going to benefit from it? But these kinds of programs drive the demand for the kinds of products that are stocked in these areas. And so, like I said, I do have a grocery store there. I do have a grocery store in my area, but a lot of my shopping, because it's so quick and so easy to get to, is at, Family Dollar and Dollar General. I don't have to buy my food there, but I do get other stuff from there. But there are people who are in that position that that's where they are getting their food from primarily. I do want to talk a little bit about your work. You get a lot of attention about your work on the oversight committee, and I think that's important because you're exposing things that are really insidious from the other side of the aisle, their ideas about how this country should be ran and a number of things. But you're on an incredibly powerful committee. And I think that, your legislation that you've proposed is evidence of the kind of impact you can have on the Agriculture Committee. Can you talk a little bit about, I know right now you're knee deep in negotiations and working around the Farm Bill. Can you talk about the importance of the Agriculture Committee for those who don't really understand how significant that committee is to this country?
Absolutely. So number one, I didn't even realize how much was going on in ag as someone who was even working, in a state legislature, in the state of Texas, which does a ton in ag. I had no idea how much was really going on. So we can talk about from a national security standpoint. Number one, we can start there, because when people thinking about, the ag committee, they definitely don't think about national security. What most people don't realize is that we actually get nitrates from Russia. So people are like, oh, we are involved in this Ukraine and Russia war. And, as far as I'm concerned, we're literally funding both sides, because we need the nitrates so that we can grow our food. So we're buying that, right? But at the same time, we're actually funding Ukraine. And I would rather we just find somebody else to maybe get our nitrates from, because they are necessary, right? But, and so a lot of us will be going on our CODELs, which is congressional delegation trips over the August recess. And a lot of us will travel internationally, but this is an opportunity for me to hopefully identify some of those countries that maybe are equipped to be nitrate suppliers, right? But think about it this way. I mean, like, imagine how much power Russia has, being that we get the majority of our nitrates out of Russia. Like, that is a very scary idea for me. So that's from a national security standpoint, which nobody thinks about ag and thinks national security. In addition to that, we deal with a lot of conservation and climate change issues. So anything from sustainable aviation fuels, which luckily, at least the airlines that are in my area, which I represent, Southwest Airlines and American Airlines is right up the street from me. They are all in for sustainable aviation fuels, which has the ability to, number one, make sure that our farmers are staying well employed. But number two, also make sure that we're reducing our carbon footprint. And so we have a lot of say-so over what sustainable aviation fuels look like, and what types of incentives we will give and things like that. So a great deal. Most people don't think about farming and think about the carbon footprint itself, leaves, and thinks about like our cows and how much they are harming the environment. That's true. But we get to work on that. And in general, with climate change happening and us feeling the effects of it so much nowadays, there's lots of incentives around just agri-tech and doing agriculture in a way that will survive climate change. Because right now we're hearing about droughts and things like that. And so the innovation behind being more efficient in how we do farming to make sure that we can survive
Mm-hmm.
in these current kind of climate conditions. And then finally, as you mentioned, we are going through the Farm Bill. It's reauthorized once every 5 years. So we're at that 5 year marker where we're doing this. But most people think about a farm bill and they probably think about farming because
Yeah.
it's called the Farm Bill. But
Right.
81% of the dollars in the Farm Bill actually go towards nutrition. And that's where you get into the SNAP benefits and the GusNIP program that I was describing. That the SHOP Act will deal with. GusNIP is an incentive program itself. So it functions within SNAP where you get an extra dollar for your fruits and veggies.
Okay.
And it's intended to hopefully get people to want to do more fruits and veggies. But it was only allowing for fresh fruit and
Okay.
veggies. And so this expands that program so that extra dollar can be used on frozen fruits and veggies as well. But it also gives you an ability to figure out how to support your local food banks and the things, because a lot of people don't understand like how much we do on ag really coincides with the food banks. And so, but I've learned a ton, especially about seniors. One of the bills that I just co-led is also specifically for seniors, but it's an idea that I got for sure after having conversations with DoorDash. DoorDash was, they're trying to be very good partners with food banks and things like that to kind of modernize how people get their food, even from a food bank, because we've modernized as far as Uber Eats and everybody else, and we can order everything else, right? From the convenience of our homes. But we're talking about some of our most vulnerable populations needing to find a ride if they don't have a car, or if they do have a car, spending money on gas to get somewhere to try to get food for free, right? Like it's just kind of one of those backwards things. Instead of us trying to make sure that we put mechanisms in place to actually make sure that those that are homebound, or make sure that those that are really struggling with mobility, or those that literally don't have access to good public transit, that they can actually get their foods and things like that. So there's a lot of modernizing that needs to go on in general. And I think that it's great that there's so many new members on this committee. While there's so much to learn and so much to do, we definitely have a diversity across the range that allows us to kind of be forward thinking, because a lot of people don't understand that we're also dealing with crypto in ag. And so most people are like, what? And it's like, yeah, we're dealing with crypto because it's considered a commodity. And so we are the ones that are trying to figure out, I know it's crazy.
So so literally, wait, hold on. So literally crypto falls under the jurisdiction of the Agriculture Committee?
It is considered a commodity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's news
crazy.
to me.
So
that's crazy.
So we are currently going to mark up a bill this week, actually, on what it looks like to regulate it. And it's falling under CTFC, and it's all these crazy things. But like, I never thought that this was going to happen here. And we also deal with rural broadband on this committee, which is a huge issue and potentially provides for a lifeline, literally, for healthcare, jobs, all those things. So it extends way beyond food on this committee. Anything from our national security down to technologies to climate and to crypto. It is all here. So we are doing a ton. So that's, unfortunately, it's not where all of the videos come from. Most people don't realize how much is going on, but just know it is a very busy and necessary committee.
Right. No, absolutely. And now I'm extra glad that I decided to focus here, because I would not have known any of that information. And I'm sure maybe I can't speak for all of my listeners, but a lot of people don't know that. But Congresswoman, I'm now that much more grateful that we have you here in those positions, not just for the district that you represent, the congressional district, but for the entire country, because I think that your approach to innovation and technology, and also understanding that certain communities need to be represented is so important and so needed. And so thank you for all of the work that all of the leadership, I don't like to say work, I want to say leadership that you're showing on these committees and the work too. But it's so important that we have you here. And I appreciate you for coming on the Reecie Colbert Show. You are welcome to come back anytime, girl. Anytime you got anything you want to talk about that you like, okay, I know I went viral this week for this, but did you see the other hearing on the other committee that I did? And we were talking about crypto needed to be da-da-da-da-da. Please give me a call and we will have you back, even if it's for 5 minutes to talk about it.
So first of all, thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. This has been absolutely amazing. I obviously am always drawn to firebrands, and you are full of fire. And so I would love to come back and make sure that we can spread the message about all the work that's going on in Congress, and the progress or lack thereof, even in the committees that matter a lot to our everyday lives, like the Ag Committee.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said even like there, because there is something that people can do. They can be engaged. They can call their Congress people and they can say, I saw that Congresswoman Crockett said that she was doing this and y'all was blocking her. So y'all need to get off your butts and stop blocking my girl. Okay. So yes, that's what this is all about, is to get people engaged and activated, because so many people really just don't understand the scale and scope of how the federal government is impacting their daily lives. So thank you again, Congresswoman, and I will see you soon back on the Reecie Colbert Show.
Thank you.